A light blur of color at first, then things seem to take shape. You see Inquisitor Milestorm's face above you. I apologize for drugging you, but it was necessary. Until we have truly tested your mettle, I didn't want to expose you to travel through the warp. In any case, we are here. You peer down the ramp onto a landing pad, much like the one you left on Scintilla. As you follow your master through many twists and turns of city streets and dodge the teeming populace trying to keep up, he explains that you are headed to Cluxon Grell, a safe house deep in the hive for your kind to work from. The further into the hive you travel, the less people seem to crowd the streets. The two of you slip down a dark alley and descend a flight of stairs at the end. Inquisitor Milestorm stops suddenly at a doorway. The lock seems to be broken and the door is ajar. He motions to you for silence, and then in the blaze of movement bursts through the doorway, plasma gun ready, and yells, "Who dares intrude on the Cluxon Grell?" From somewhere deep inside, you hear movement. Now that's the intro that he actually wrote for the beginning of this adventure, and at this point, it's actually up to me as the PC to actually keep the game going. So, of course, I'm standing outside the doorway, and Inquisitor Milestorm just run in. So I, of course, ready my las gun, and I run in behind him and stop in the middle of the room. Now, the description of this room was it's basically a 3-room apartment. It has a main room, a bedroom, and an office area. The walls are of a dark metal color, and the floor was kind of sandstone. In the middle of the room that I'm in right now, there are tables set about, and there are, a bunch of lock boxes that I can kind of see through the hallway that's straight ahead of me. To the right of me is a doorway that actually leads into what looks like a bedroom, but it's kind of low lit, so I really wasn't able to see in that area yet. As I said, there's a hallway directly in front of me, and that's actually where Inquisitor Milestorm was standing. He comes back towards me, puts his weapon up, looks at me, he goes, take care of these scum, and walks outside. So, of course, I automatically, there's different things you can do for attacks in this game. I went into what's called a defensive stance. Basically, it adds plus 20 to my, actually it takes a minus 20 from anybody that tries to shoot at me. So, as I'm standing there, waiting to see what happens, this guy, I noticed that the hallway that Milestorm was standing at, he's kind of, peeking around the corner looking at me. Well, the next thing I know, he fires a couple pop shots at me. All 3 of them missed. So I decided on my next turn that came around, I actually fired back on him. And when I fired back on him, the way my weapon works is first you roll to hit. If you hit by so much, which is essentially if you hit by more than 10, for each one you hit is considered a degree of success. So for every degree of success, I got 2 more shots on this guy. So essentially I hit him 3 times is what ended up happening. Well, with this game, unlike D&D, you actually roll to see where at on the person's body you hit them. When I rolled, I first hit him in the leg, which, of course, he was hiding behind the corner, so that shot missed. The second and third shot both hit him in the right arm. Now, when I rolled up for damage, the very first damage that I did to this guy was 9 wounds. Now, another thing you got to realize, unlike in D&D, you have hit points, but in Dark Heresy, you have wounds. When in D&D, if you hit 0, you're automatically dead. The game's over. In Dark Heresy, however, once your wounds hit 0, you are then what's called critical damage. And there's actually a chart you roll against for critical damage. So the second shot that I rolled on him, I actually rolled 12 points of damage to this guy, which put him into critical damage 10 plus on the actual energy level chart, which it stated, the attack reduces the arm to a cloud of ash and sends the target crumbling to the ground, where they immediately die from shock, catching their smoking stump. So essentially, I was watching this guy, he shot at me, I shot, hit the wall because his legs were blocked. I then fired 2 shots into his right arm and essentially just blew this guy's arm to pieces. It melted, and he falls to the floor dead. Okay, so at this point, the second guy that was in there sees this happening. He freaks. He comes flying around the corner, and he's trying to run for it. He gets all the way to the door where he runs out of movement. So he couldn't go any further. I mean, he was literally one more step and he would have been out the door and gone. So at this point, it was my turn again. I actually went and instead of taking a full round to put up my weapon, I actually dropped my las gun, which is a free action, and then I pulled out my sword and charged him. As I charged up to him, you get so many modifiers to your rolls. When I actually hit this guy, I ended up doing I ended up rolling a natural 10 on the dice. Well, what happens with that is you get what's called Righteous Fury. And essentially what Righteous Fury is, it means the eye of the Emperor is upon you and he's watching over you. So you actually get an additional attack on this guy. So instead of hitting once, I hit him twice. So it ended up doing 24 points of rending damage to his body with a sword. And as basically what happened was I hit this guy so hard that his whole intestines just fell out of him. He fell to the floor dead. So, it sounds like that was a quick battle, but and looking back at it, it actually took us about an hour and a half because we were having to try to figure out exactly how to work everything. Because we were so used to D&D working one way, we got into this game and it actually worked totally opposite of that. But once we figured it out, it was actually quite smooth. Essentially what happened after that was after the fight, Malstorm came back in. He didn't say nothing to me. He walked straight into the hallway. He walked into the office. He kind of looked around and came back and he goes, "Poor scum. They were in here and didn't even get nothing out of the lock boxes." He kind of chuckled. He looked at me and he goes, "Okay, now with that out of the way, we can move on to small business at hand. My intel has warned me that a small cult of Slanesh worshippers are here in the hive and drawing nobles in by appealing to every twisted desire you might have. First, we will work on your costume and get you ready to infiltrate one of the dinner parties of House Defined. You must say nothing of your true reason to be there. Only watch and gather info on anyone who might seem out of place or acting strange. I will make the preparations to get you into your inner circle. After that, it was my job to keep a vigilant eye until he returned." He basically looked at me and, he's basically set me up in this place to infiltrate into this House Defined to try to find out why these nobles are disappearing. And that was essentially the end of that gaming session. I loved it. Dark Heresy is an unbelievable RPG. We actually have played another game, which I will do another blog for. So, stay tuned, and I'll talk to you then.